We're looking at translucent china made by Homer Laughlin today. We've got two shapes. We've got the Triumph shape, which is this conical form, and then we have the American shape, which comes from the 1960s. We're going to start with Triumph. This was by Don Schreckengost and introduced in 1959. We'll look at an article that was put out by the East Liverpool Review, East Liverpool, Ohio, and it's talking about the trade show that was in Atlantic City. And it says, pottery seek upsurge with Chinaware, hope to combat Japanese and plastic. In the respect of the Japanese, they're talking about quote-unquote fine china, translucent dinnerware that was flooding the market all through the 1950s. And by the time you get to the end of the 1950s, many of the area potteries started creating their own versions of translucent dinnerware. This article mentions four of the potteries: Homer Laughlin, Taylor Smith & Taylor, the Edwin M. Knowles China Company, and Harker Pottery. For TS&T, because I know there are some TS&T collectors out there that watch these videos, they're talking about John Jilks and Taylorton. But for Homer Laughlin, we're going to look at two paragraphs from this. This is on the second page, and it's cut off at the top, but it's Potteries Invade Chinaware Field. And there are two things we need to look at. First of all, Homer Laughlin's new china shape, called Triumph, will be shown in swan white and 4 patterns. Now, they go on to call this Snow White. A new approach to dinnerware styling, Triumph has a severe, dignified line stripped to the essentials. The design emphasizes a vertical look in contrast to the horizontal, quote, down to the table appearance of most china. The handles have a graceful appearance to accent the severity of the form. And it goes on to say the new shape and patterns plus the new decorations Laughlin will show on semi-vitreous ware were all produced by Don Schreckengost, design director. So at 1959, we're coming at the end of Don Schreckengost's time at Homer Laughlin. This would have been his last major shape for the pottery. And as you see, it has this very vertical look to it. It's a rather top-heavy design. We'll look at some brochures that show some patterns. This is Woodland. This one is October Leaves. That one's Spring Rose, I believe. We have it's Spring Rose. We're going to look at that in a minute. Pastel Rose, and here's Snow White. It was called Swan White back in the show. Here we see the full assortment. It's rather standard. All the plates and bowls are of a coupe shape, and your hollowware has this conical form. And then we have Linda. Now, when the pieces are marked, they will usually have a special back stamp of it. It's a decal with the treatment name. This one's Spring Rose. And here we have Autumn Time. And finally, let's see, Woodland. So we have those special decal back stamps. Most of your hollowware is not going to be marked. It's just going to be plain. This Pastel Rose has a nice gold overglaze back stamp. Just says Triumph Homer Laughlin Fine China, made in USA, no mention of a pattern name. So we're going to show how it's translucent. The last time we looked at translucent ware was the HLC shape from 1890s, I believe it was. So we'll get a creamer here, or a flashlight, and you can see the light passing through it. Rather durable ware, low absorption rate, which means that the decals are not going to fade. That if it chips, you're not going to get a discolored area. So we've got the coffee pot, sugar and creamer, some salt and pepper shakers. This one I believe is called Plume. And then we have the American shape, which again is translucent. This was designed by Vincent Broomhall in the early 60s. I believe it was 1962 or 1963. I wasn't planning on showing this shape quite yet, but because it ties in so much with Triumph and they're both translucent, I thought I'd better go ahead and put it in this video. So it's a more traditional curved body shape. Most of the flatware comes from Triumph, and we have a coffee pot and some sugars and a creamer. Now, the plain version, which was sold through Vaughn's department stores, or I should say grocery stores, will have this underglaze Triumph Snow White marking. So we'll go back and look at, this is Snow White China, and it's Triumph Homer Laughlin Open Stock. This is what's called a Vaughn Cup, and we'll see this in a couple advertisements where they talk about the Triumph shape and the Vaughn Cup. They're talking about this coupe-shaped cup as opposed to the conical standard cup that you would find in Triumph. And this was the idea. You'd come to the store on a certain week and you would get the cup at a discounted price if you bought $5 worth of goods. And then you'd come next week and there might be the sugar, next week might be the creamer, and you just keep going back until you build up your whole line of dinnerware. This is a Triumph sheet of pricing from 1959, the year it was introduced. And what we see is standard prices for all the decals and undecorated ware. So when we were looking at rhythm and we were looking at the pound sterling books, and we noticed, well, certain patterns and rhythm were more expensive than others. When it comes to Triumph, they're all the same. They don't make any distinctions at all. So we have prices for decorated ware and we have prices for undecorated ware. So we don't have to go through this basis of $8 and calculate a list price and so forth anymore. And then it has the composition sets, which were designated with numbers, and letters to code. Like, for example, a 95-piece set was designated TC, and you would get 12 of all the basic place settings and then all the extras. So TC, then, you would use that as your pricing. So TC, if you had decorated ware, then it's $89.45. If it's undecorated, then it's $74.95. And here we see some Triumph treatment numbers. And again, all our pound sterling numbers are all gone because the books are obsolete now. The ones up top are Triumph. The ones at the bottom use a mix of Triumph with American Hollowware. And here we see the Vaughn cups being specified to be used in ones like TR46 and TR45. This is from 1966. It's the Aluminum Company of America from Pennsylvania. And it's just specifying TR45 April Flower and TR46 Primo Bouquet. But I wanted to show this because, again, it shows this mixture of shapes: the Vaughn Cup, Triumph Flatware, the American Coupe Soup, and the American Sugar and Creamer. And let's see, this one's from 1969. And again, this is TR57 American Classic, a mixture of Triumph and American Hollowware. But I only wanted to show this one to highlight that this, well, Triumph and American were made for roughly 10 years. Or the concept of this translucent ware, this fine china, was made for 10 years. And even still, it's not the easiest product to find. So that's a little bit about Triumph by Don Schreckengost and American by Vincent Broomhall. So we're pretty much done with Don Schreckengost for now. I'm sure we will come back and revisit a lot of the shapes that I've covered so far. Next time we're going to look at Best China. We'll focus on some shapes and patterns from the 60s and 70s, and then we will move on into the Vincent Broomhall era. So that's going to be it.